Hello and welcome back to McClaren Performance for an episode today where I want to talk about Graham Potter. He has the least sexiest name in football, but why is he still so good? Graham Potter has had the weirdest journey in football. Starting off at Leeds, Met University, going off to Östersunds in Sweden, taking up all divisions, taking them to European football, then going to Swansea, then going to Brighton, playing unbelievable, tactically complicated football, and then from there going on now to Chelsea. It's a strange and rapid rise really for an English manager, and it doesn't come without all its plaudits as well. I mean, Pep Guardiola calls him one of the best managers in the world right now. Marcelo Bielsa as well said a lot of kind words, as well as Jurgen Klopp. He's definitely more than earned his chance at Chelsea. But what is it about the guy that really makes him so good? What has led to this quick rise, especially for an English manager as well? On the surface, straight away, you can see that he's someone who has a really great tactical understanding. While most successful teams and managers would really stick to one, say, formation, like Liverpool, like Jurgen Klopp, always playing 4-3-3. But with Graham Potter and looking just eyeballing it over the games, say last season with Brighton, he'll constantly change formation. Sometimes back four, sometimes back three, sometimes two strikers, sometimes one striker. But what stays the same are fundamental principles of how he wants to play. His teams always maintain that they're possession based, that they're always attacking, but they has a flexibility with it also where they can change formation, also change personnel as well, really to adapt to any opposition. That's a massive frustration for opposition teams and opposition managers who are trying to plan against that. But most commonly you'll look at a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3, really utilising those fullbacks, always pushing them out wide to the point where, yes, he'll have a strong defence with the amount of players at the back, but also going forward, he'll have fullbacks going wide, strikers there also coming out wide to support the wing-backs, midfielders coming in, to the point where you almost have 5-6 attacking players. Honestly, that's the best way I can describe it because it's really complicated. It's not my area, the tactical aspect of things, but looking into that, compared to other teams that I looked at recently, it's really complex. And what makes it more impressive there is how he has managed to get players to buy into that and get on board with that. While that tactical flexibility, the complexity of it is fantastic, that's not really his secret sauce as to why he is so good. The secret behind it, and it's something that has been discussed quite a bit around his appointment as Chelsea, is the aspect of emotional intelligence. There's a fantastic quote from Graham Potter, and it's that a style of play doesn't make you win games. It's having players believe in it. Any manager would play with such complexity if they could. They all have an understanding of it. But it's one thing to know those tactics, but to actually communicate that to a group of players, have them believe in it, have them understand it, understand their roles all the time and how it may shift. That is such a difficult thing to do. A lot has been said about this leadership and emotional intelligence master's degree from Leeds Beckett University. But what does any of that actually really mean? It's been touched on it, emotional intelligence, that's important, he's so good at that. But how does that actually work? Well, for one, emotional intelligence is to be able to perceive, to control, to understand really your own emotions, but not just that, to also see that in other people. Ultimately, what Graham Potter carries around, he carries around this understanding of himself, how he works, how the people around him work, how they think and feel in certain situations, and how that relates to the actual physical performance on the pitch. If you're looking at the tactical complexity of, say, like a team like Brighton, he has an understanding of the people behind that work. The people and the motivations and the process, the thoughts, the emotions that actually feed into that complex tactical performance. So, for example, a lot has been made about his time at Östersunds, all the strange things he did with regards to the players, performing Swan Lake and writing a book. But really what that did was really went for the psychological aspect of the team, working under pressure, working with each other, practicing all those things, those fundamental things that make for a good team. They're the kind of things that make the headlines, but I think the reality of implementing that psychology, that emotional intelligence into an environment, the way that Graham Potter does, is to kind of drip feed it into conversation and make it a part of the process week in, week out going into games. For example, Brighton's McAllister said that he'd try and always bring up psychological things into the conversation. So Potter would do meetings really about thinking about the situations. He would ask the players, what do you think about this? How do you feel about this situation? Really digging into the roots, really the layers underneath the actual performance to find out really where those performances are coming from. Steve Sidwell, who also worked at Brighton when Potter was there as well, talked about how he would listen to players, and because of that, the players would then buy into the process. I think he's a fantastic manager, really, because he has that understanding of psychology. He acts almost like a sports psychologist in a manager's position. We always talk about this thing in football, right? That the person before the play, everyone always talks about it, but nobody rarely implements it into the actual football environment. Day in, day out, second by second, actually does what they say with regards to putting the person first. But Graham Potter clearly is someone who does that, and he massively benefits from doing it. As Graham Potter said in a recent Sky Sports interview, it's common sense, but it's really not common practice, and it's something that he's massively utilised in his career throughout, from Ostersons to Swansea to Brighton. This is something that I mention a lot, but this is really the secret sauce, the secret ingredients to Graham Potter's success. He focuses firstly on the environment, understanding what environment he wants, tries to build that culture, tries to set values, does performances, engages players with different things to bring them together as a team. He looks at them as individuals, talks to them, listens to them, understands who they are, what motivates them, and then after that looks at what that looks like on the pitch in a tactical sense, understanding all those layers beforehand, bringing it then into a physical performance, not just as an individual, but tactically as a team, being able to play such complex tactical football with players in different positions. And he can afford to do that because he has an understanding of his players and they have his respect. And he utilises all that emotional intelligence. Then that leads to consistent performances in his team and consistent results. A lot of coaches, a lot of leaders just talk about environment. Yeah, we want a good environment. But don't actually, it's not ingrained in the minutes, the seconds of the day, into the build-up of the game. And clearly Graham Potter does that. He talks about it all the time. He makes it a part of analysis. He makes it a part of talking about games. He makes it a part of talking individually to players. So it's ingrained within the teams that he manages. He also has a great strength in something that I talked about before with 5 things that make a good football manager. One of those things is having the ability to look at the short term and the long term. If you look at Brighton, his few seasons there, you can see a team that is developing and progressing tactically all of the time. A focus not so much on the short term results, but looking at what is going on the pitch with the team and seeing where he can improve and develop his players. Coming towards his end time at Brighton, you could see that he had players that could then be utilised in lots of different positions and can adapt a lot to his tactics and his system. And that comes from a foundation of always looking to the long term for the past 3-4 years, growing and developing to that point where they could play with that complexity. In other words, process over result. There's also a great video from Graham Potter, I think it was for the FA, where he talks about his 5 leadership qualities that I think he has in himself or he wants players to have also. And they're really not that complicated at all. They're really quite simple. There's transparency, honesty, reliability, professionalism, and long-term view, which we talked about a second ago there. All real simple stuff we always talk about. And like I said, the difference, he just puts it into action every single day. Sets those roots, starts growing those trees, those plants, and feeds into that season by season and grows and develops a team. He did it at Ostersons, he did it at Brighton. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he gets the time to do that at Chelsea as well. Then you'll really see the benefits of his management. But yeah, that's everything. What do you think of Graham Potter? After reading about him, everything like that, I realised how much I really like him. I wish I looked into him more sooner. Understanding really how much he utilises psychology is definitely, looking at it now, probably one of my favourite managers. Comment below what you think. But other than that, like and subscribe as usual. Give a review on Spotify and Apple and Google if you're listening. And yeah, I'll see you again either this week or next week.